Klay Thompson has been under a serious microscope for his performances this season.
And then, look at what is going on with that. Wow.
You'd think with all he's done for the franchise and those championship rings, he'd get a bit of a pass, right? But here's the thing, it doesn't spare him one bit, and on the brink of a reported contract extension with the Dubs, it isn't looking all good for Klay. But is he really doing that bad?
If Klay Thompson isn't shooting the ball at an elite level, what use is there for him?
The Golden State Warriors haven't exactly had the smoothest of seasons, and a big chunk of that is down to Klay Thompson's struggles. I mean, they're desperately trying to shake off the bad vibes from last season, and having a slumping Klay isn't helping matters. It sounds crazy though, as never in our wildest dreams would we have thought that we would associate Klay with playing badly. Players can have off nights, no doubt about it, but when those off nights persist, it calls for a lot of questions. And for Klay, there are a lot of unanswered ones. He is arguably one of the best shooters in the last decade or so, but his shooting percentages are hitting rock bottom currently, and he's spending more time on the bench than we're used to seeing. It's rough, no doubt about it. But it doesn't stop many people from tagging him the most washed-up player in the league right now, and this might just be the biggest slump we've seen in ages. People are even saying the Warriors should consider trading him, throwing in some picks, maybe a splash of young talent, anything to shake things up. Klay's struggles seem to be front and center, and it's looking like if they don't sort this out, their championship dreams might be over. So, how exactly did Klay fall off? Well, you see, back in the 2012-13 season, he hit his lowest field goal percentage ever at 42.2%. Fast forward to now, and he's hovering just above that mark this season at 42.3%. And his last couple of seasons haven't been shining examples either. He's in the final stretch of that massive 5-year, $190 million deal he inked back in 2019, but he's set to hit unrestricted free agency after this season, and that's definitely not the kind of shooting percentage that'll get him that contract extension. The start of the season was not exactly what he or the Warriors had in mind. In the first 13 games, Klay was averaging just 14 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 2.1 assists in around 30 minutes per game. He was also shooting around 40% from the field and a measly 33% from beyond the arc, his worst yet at that stage of the season. Maybe it was just the constant injuries that led to his inconsistency, but he became a shadow of what we used to know as part of the Splash Brothers. Speaking of which, Steph has been the go-to man for the Dubs, and it is expected that when he isn't available, Klay would step up and fill the void. But it hasn't happened at all this season. In mid-November 2023, in 2 games without Steph, Klay didn't exactly light up the scoreboard. Only managed to rack up 5 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and a steal in a total of 29 minutes. Now, I have mentioned he got ejected pretty early in one of those games against the Timberwolves, but it's his performance against the Thunder that really raised eyebrows. He went 1 for 10 from the field and 1 for 6 from downtown. In that game against OKC, he started with a bang, sinking a 3-pointer in the first quarter. But then, it was all downhill from there. He missed 9 shots straight after that and ended the game with just 5 points. Around the closing stages of the first quarter, Klay drove inside the arc, never really got separation, telegraphed his pull-up jumper to a degree, and it got blocked. OKC broke the other direction and ended the transition opportunity with an alley-oop to SGA. Now, with his impressive frame, wingspan, and that trademark high release, you'd think he'd have no trouble in that area. But it seems like he's having trouble creating space for his shots like he used to. Defenders are catching up to him quicker than before with that extra split second. Take the game against OKC, for example. He couldn't shake off defenders like Dort Williams or Wallace, and even when Steph's on the court, he's still struggling to find his rhythm, shooting below average from 3. Now, there's still hope for improvement. I mean, last season he started off slow too before picking up the pace. He did pick up pace a little after that OKC game and finished the rest of the month scoring double digits in points. But despite some good scoring runs, it wasn't really consistent. Take the game against the Phoenix Suns on February 11th, for example. Klay struggled big time, shooting just 2 for 10 from the field and a dismal 1 for 7 from beyond the arc. Not exactly the Klay we're used to seeing. His offense became inconsistent, but what about his defense? See, Klay's not as spry as he once was. Those injuries and age are catching up with him. He's not hustling and sticking to his man like glue anymore. It's tough to watch, especially for someone who's been a defensive powerhouse for so long. Klay's steal rate is hitting rock bottom, and get this, Golden State's defense is bleeding points like nobody's business when he's on the court, a whopping 10.1 more per 100 possessions. The Warriors are getting some serious heat this season, especially when it comes to Klay. It's like everyone's wondering if his glory days are all behind him. Klay's averaging just 17 points per game this season, his lowest since 2013. His field goal percentage of 42.3%, three-point percentage of 38.2%, and effective field goal percentage of 54% are some of the lowest in his entire career. Although his offensive rating improved as the season progressed, his steals improved from 0.4 at the early stages of the season to 0.6, but it is still less than his career average at 0.9, suggesting that he's slowed down considerably, which in all explains why he has an improved defensive rating than most seasons, as he hardly moves up and down the court as usual, but just wait for an offensive move to defend. Even though he's playing fewer minutes this season, something's definitely off with his game, and he might boast a decent defensive rating, but the Warriors are struggling with him on the court. And it's not just his offense dragging them down, it's his defense too, dropping in overall defensive performance. For Klay, his reputation as a sharpshooter is basically what's keeping him relevant on offense. But if he doesn't step up soon, other teams might catch on to the fact that he's more of a decoy than a threat. Now, did the Warriors dodge a bullet by not handing Klay another mega contract in the offseason? Or was it all part of their plan? Tough call, but his struggles are definitely raising some eyebrows. Klay's got the 20th worst player efficiency rating in the league for players averaging at least 25 minutes a game. And among that bottom crew, he's sitting at the 7th worst in field goal percentage. It's a bit tricky to label this as his worst year without diving into all the factors at play. I mean, this guy's been through the ringer with all those ACL and Achilles injuries, which resulted to some serious time off the court, and coming back from that kind of setback takes time. In 2021 and 2022, a brutal injury sidelined him for almost the entire season, but the Warriors managed to snag a championship that season. But here's the thing. Even with that ring under his belt, many people were still wondering if Klay could keep up with that All-NBA level of play. I mean, he was hitting 32 then, and those injuries weren't exactly a walk in the park. And so to the playoff hopes of the Dubs. The Warriors are currently sitting at 10th place in the West, not exactly where they want to be, especially with the playoffs looming. If things don't pick up, it could be the third time in 12 years that they miss out on the postseason. Steph is no doubt the man to take them far, but every superhero needs a sidekick. Now, Klay's supposed to be that Robin, that second in command to Steph's heroics. But at 34, in the midst of his worst season ever, you have to wonder if he can pull it off by helping the Warriors reach the playoffs. But if he can display that kind of mentality he showed against the Utah Jazz in mid-February, there might be a chance. In that game, Klay came off the bench for the first time since his rookie season, and boy, did he make an impact. Knocked down 7 threes and dropped a season-high 35 points, leading the Warriors to a sweet victory. Now, this move to the bench for rookie Brandon Podziemski might sound like a demotion, but Klay didn't let it faze him one bit. Klay's streak of 727 straight starts is the 4th longest active streak in the NBA, trailing only some heavy hitters like DeRozan, Lillard, and, of course, Steph. But Warriors coach Steve Kerr liked what he saw so much that he's sticking with Klay off the bench in many stretches, at least for now. Having Klay in the starting lineup just isn't cutting it anymore. So maybe it's time for a change. Maybe Klay's better suited to come off the bench, spark some energy, and light it up when the team needs a boost. He has averaged 20 points, 3 rebounds, almost dishing out 3 assists per game from the bench this season. Despite snagging an NBA title and making it to the Western Conference semifinals since his comeback from that injury, it's clear that Klay hasn't quite found his groove again after that long injury layoff. And with this season marking the final year of his contract, things are getting really interesting. For the first time ever, Klay's in the middle of trade talks. It's a big departure from the norm, and the Warriors are facing some tough decisions about his future with the team. It's tough to watch a player of Klay's caliber go through a rough patch like this. He is known for his sharpshooting and lockdown defense, but has been in a bit of a slump this season. Like, we're talking about career worst shooting percentages from both the field and beyond the arc. This has considerably led to his reduced minutes this season, and with reports swirling about Klay eyeing another big payday, his struggles on the court and these benchings might throw a wrench in his plans. It's a whole new ballgame for the Warriors, with fresh faces like Kuminga and Podziemski stepping up, but let's not be too quick to judge. Last season, Klay led the entire NBA with a whopping 301 threes, 28 more than Steph. So the quality might still be in there somewhere. Here's the deal. The Warriors might not be jumping at the chance to offer Klay a max deal right now, with the team struggling to see if they'll even make the playoffs. Sure, if Klay suddenly turns into his old self in the decisive part of the season and the Warriors start dominating, things could change. But as it stands, a big payday for Klay seems like a long shot. Leaving would mean saying goodbye to his brothers-in-arms, Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Those three have been through it all together, building a Warriors dynasty that made history. But then again, it all depends on how the season ends and how Klay put up more decent numbers. Warriors fans would have to be patient. Klay's been a cornerstone of this franchise's success, so they should trust the process and see where it leads. Who knows? Maybe there's a championship run still in the cards with this crew. But do you see that happening? And more importantly, do you see Klay returning to his former dominant self?